Good morning, good afternoon, guys. Hope you guys are having a fantastic one today. Welcome to Professor Woodshed. And here we go on a lovely, lovely Wednesday, guys. We are jumping in to a nice little lesson today where we're talking about Rebound, Diddles, and Paradiddles. Also, we got a few studio upgrades as well. What is up, guys? Hope you're having a great one. We got a number pad. We can switch to the board cam. We can switch to the drum cam. We're good to go. Also, another board should be coming in today as well, so I'm super excited about that. And let's get to this camera right here, because we're going to be talking a lot about Diddles today. I'm going to turn this one down just a tad. I want to get like a Velcro and like, you know, like right there on the wall. You know what I'm saying? What's up, CCC? What's up, Fire Islander? How you guys doing? A couple of other stream updates for today, so check this out. We're now affiliates on Twitch. In case you have not seen, there's the ability to subscribe and do some biddy type of cheers in the stream and all that kind of stuff. There we go. All right, cool. Let's get this in here. This is so, yeah, I got to get used to this. All right, let's see if that's probably a good angle, I think, for everybody to see everything that's going on. And you can see my lovely foot right there in the corner, too. All right, we're going to be talking a lot about Diddles today. And a lot of you guys maybe are drummers. Maybe you guys aren't drummers. Maybe you've heard of these types of things before. But I got to tell you, it's one of the big things on drums is to get your rebound is a super, super important thing. All right, so what is rebound? Let's just talk about that briefly. Rebound is basically exactly what it sounds like. There's nothing too crazy about it. It's like when the stick hits the drum or drum surface of any type, it's bouncing back up. And it's one of the things that as a drummer, you need to get as much control over that rebound as possible. When we start talking about the drum technique, we talked about briefly is utilizing the fulcrum. The fulcrum of where the stick is, where you're holding the stick and where that sort of pivot point happens in your hand. We kind of reference back to like the holding the sticks, how to hold sticks and all those types of things if you want to get into the those portions. But we're going to be utilizing a little bit of arm, wrist, and fingers, those three different combination points that we use on every single drum stroke in order to get utilize the rebound and to get a good diddle stroke. Now, we're going to talk about this just a little bit. For a diddle stroke, the way that I like to define a diddle is going to be a note that you play on a drum head that uses one stroke from the hand, but you get two notes out of it per the stroke. Now, there's a couple of technique things that need to happen in order for this to take place. Number one, you need to have a normal stroke utilizing a lot of wrist, a lot of fingers, and a lot of arm, a full stroke. That's just a normal full stroke. Fingers, wrist, and arm. Yeah, buddy. All right, all those things for both hands. Fingers, wrist, and arm. Now, when you hit the drum head, the interesting thing that's going to happen is when we play a diddle, we're going to incorporate that rebound, and I'll kind of put my hand this way so you can kind of see, is instead of just like hitting the stick and just holding it or holding it down, what we're going to be doing is we're letting the stick come back up, but instead of our entire arm coming up or our wrist coming up, we're going to absorb that rebound by letting our fingers relax and let the stick kind of come up through here in this vicinity with just the finger motion, just like this. So the idea is, so I'm gonna get a good camera angle here. I'll try to like do it kind of sideways so you see. Keep an eye out on these fingers here. These are the important bits, guys. So as we hit it, we start over fulcrum point, and remember and this is specifically for Vic Firth. Look at that, look at that. You can definitely tell the fisheye lens. There's an American flag right there. There we go. Right there, and that's usually where your thumb and index finger are holding the stick. Now I do a full range of motion. You need to drum up some coffee. You know what, Bongo? Cheers to that. Cheers to that indeed. Yeah, delicious. Good pause for the cause right there, my friends. Good pause for the cause on a snowy Wednesday of all things. All right, so check this out. Here's going to be the diddle stroke, guys. Full stroke of motion, letting the stick rebound, but instead of it being absorbed by wrist, and instead of it being absorbed by arm, we're going to allow it just to be finger motion that the diddle comes up with. So we hit the first stick and we let it rebound, but you notice what happened. It's hard to do this like in a slow, Grovis coming in with a tier 1 sub. Dude, I got to come up with a really cool alert for that, by the way. Can we please get some hearts in chat? Of any type. I need to get my emote ready, guys. But Grovis, thank you so much for subbing via the tier 1 sub. Excellent. Thank you so much. You are number 2. You are our second sub of the stream, guys. And the first one that happened live. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. All right, one more time. Let's get down to it. We do this. We hit the full stroke, and we're going to absorb that impact, boink, with just the fingers. Now it's hard to kind of see because it is sort of it's a fast motion that occurs. But again, the stick is going to want to bounce back up. There you go, boink, just like that, boink, all those types of things. I can't help it, I got excited. Oh, I was excited to see that too. I was like, I tweeted out that we got affiliate, and Fireliner was like, got it, I'm on it. You're gonna be the first sub. Enjoy the star, yeah, you know what I'm saying? You need drum, like, badoom. I was thinking about that hand, but all right, here, let's, brief pause for the cause. The sub notifications, if they go off during a song or something like that, I was almost thinking that we want it to be not drum related. Because if it was like a drum beat, during a drum beat, when the sub alert goes off, it's kind of like incongruous, if you guys know what I'm saying. So I was thinking, I want to think about like what kind of sub alert do I have? What actually got triggered, guys? Was it like, it was like a little thingy, right? It's like, ba-dink, poof. What up, Riz? How you doing, bro? How are you doing? How are you doing? All right, so we're gonna talk about it. So a diddle. Let's break it down. We're gonna do this a bunch of times so everybody gets the whole thing that goes into, playing a diddle, as it were. But a diddle is a single stroke that you get 2 notes out of per the stroke. 2 notes per the stroke. And that goes for right and left hand, regardless of whether you're playing traditional grip or you're playing match grip. Either way, it's exactly the same. But the way that we get that second stroke is by utilizing different portions of arm, wrist, and finger. And in this case, we're going to be absorbing the rebound from our first stroke with only our fingers. So you notice how like the wrist does not come up, the arm does not come up, but only the fingers absorb that impact. Now, what the important thing here is that you do get this bounce and that you're absorbing this with the fingers, because that's where the second stroke is going to come from, is from these 3 fingers. So the essential thing is this: hit it up, stick comes back up, and then fingers come back down for the next stroke. And then if you notice, everything kind of came back to position 1. So full stroke, absorb for fingers, fingers play the second stroke as we come back up for the second one. And you notice what happens is you get this 1 arm stroke that gets played, and you get 2 notes that happen. 2 notes that happen. Now this one's going to be a little bit tough. This is definitely a little bit more of an advanced drum technique. But as you can see, this right here, getting a feel for this rebound, takes quite a lot of practice to get this happening. The idea, though, is that I'm not locking my wrist, I'm not locking it, I'm not locking my arm. Everything that's here, from wrist to arm to all of the upper echelon here, nothing is being tensed. You're not holding them steady, you're just relaxing them and not using them. You're only using as little amount of pressure that you need in order to keep things sort of under control. Diddle a couple more times. So down motion and up motion. Now, as we start to talk about this, I want you to look at the tip of the stick, and we're going to talk about the actual stick motion that occurs during a diddle. The initial portion of our starting position, instead of thinking of starting our position here, which is a lot of times you'll see that in drum corps, like here we got this and all that. And you'll have that like starting position there and all of that. So starting positions there, they see that like more on like a drum corps sort of scenario, which I haven't done that in like a long time, by the way. Getting the tips and the butts of the stick all together. Boom, click. All right. But instead of thinking about it that way, when you play it on like a drum, or you're a drum set player or something like that, you almost want to think about every stroke starting sort of on this position as an up position. Because instead of this, you would be like, the first thing you do when you play this, when you start here, is you pick the stick up and then you put the stick back down. How about we think about starting it here? Now watch the tip of the stick as we play this diddle. Bump, 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 bump. All right. So let's talk about that just briefly on the board cam here. Ooh, number pad for Raji. Here we go. Number pad for the Raj. So we're going to talk about like this diddle motion, this concept of diddle motion. And let's grab ourselves our marker here. Here we go. All right, dudes. So if we think about this in terms of upstrokes and downstrokes, we start in the up position, we go down and hit the drum surface, we allow the rebound to come back up, then we use our fingers for this downstroke, so this is the downstrokes, and then we finally bring our arm back up. So the entire beat of the stick does a W sort of motion, an up, a down, and then an up. But where we're utilizing these muscle groups, this is a full stroke on this part. This is a finger rebound only, so this portion here is finger. I didn't give myself enough space, guys. Uh-oh. Fingers. And then this is full. So you want to basically do 3 portions of every single diddle stroke. The 3 portions of every single diddle stroke are always going to be starting from the up position, getting a rebound position to have that rebound happen, and then finally coming in and hitting the final stroke and getting back to the original up position. Because the idea is that you don't play just one and be like, I'm done. You want to be able to play these over and over and over and over again, so you need to get back to starting position. There it is, fingers. See that finger? Boop, boop, boop. Big finger. Fingers for the, and it's almost like you do this too. It feels to me, as you start to play through these diddle motions, it almost feels like you kind of pull down. Like it almost feels like a good way to start to get this feel for it is like if I hit through the pad and you notice my entire arm went straight through the pad, but where my hand position ends up is that I'm holding the stick and the fingers allow for that rebound. Getting that, and then it almost feels like on the way back up I'm hitting another note. So it's like one on the way down, one on the way up. Now, that's kind of the starting point of getting a good feel for where those fingers happen. This is a tough one, guys. I don't know if anybody's tried this or trying it at home or tried it at home sometime. Start working on the diddle motion. This is so essential. And as I play it, it looks like it's super easy, but you're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff. You notice how, okay, there's a lot of tension that's happening here, a lot of the rebounds coming from the wrist, a lot of the boom, all these things are happening. This is a very difficult thing to do, to not utilize wrist. And notice that the wrist didn't move at all. The wrist didn't move at all. It's only fingers. Only fingers that are letting that stick come back up. Controlling that rebound, guys. Controlling that rebound. That's the tough part. Because the actual stroke itself, first stroke is super easy. Second stroke is a little bit more. And then the other thing about doing this and working on the diddles and getting all of these parts happening is that a lot of times when you first learn them, everybody talks about rebound. Here's what everybody's first rolls sound like, because you're thinking about one stroke and getting 2 notes, right? And utilizing the rebound. What a lot of people initially do is don't have any sort of muscle group for that second rebounded note. So it becomes a drop stroke like this. So what's happening here, so we could briefly talk about it, is like you're playing a normal stroke, you're allowing the stick to rebound, but basically you're just sort of like letting go. And you're sort of just letting the stick bounce and then controlling it. And you get this sound, and I hope it's coming through, of like one really loud note and then one really soft note. And the reason for that is because you're putting all of your power in the first stroke, but you're only allowing the physics of the bounce and then the stick just kind of falling back to the drum to get that second note out. So you have that boom, 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 boom. And then you get this sort of roll, it sounds like. Even if you have the right rhythm for it, it's like a lot of times this is what you'll see. You'll see a lot of this. You'll hear a lot of this. This is like when you first start to roll, that's the kind of sound that you sort of get, and you'll hear that like, and that's called drop strokes. Now, while utilizing this finger and playing it slowly and getting the practice of this finger rebound, you have given yourself a huge opportunity for power out of these 3 fingers. And remember, we talked about this just a little bit, but what makes a drum loud when you hit it? This is so important to think about. Most people think about it as power. How much muscle power do I actually throw into the drum is what makes it loud. That is actually incorrect. It's about velocity. It's about how fast the stick is moving when it hits the drum surface or the pad surface. It's all about how fast it moves rather than how much Yeah, it's speed of impact, Hambo. You got it exactly right. It's all about velocity and speed of impact. A meteor can hit Earth, but if it hit Earth like with a parachute, just think about it like that. If something hits the ground with a parachute and it's at a slow rate, it's not going to leave a big impact. But if it's coming at a high velocity, it's going to leave a giant crater. So that's kind of the thing. So we have that speed of the impact, and it's easy to do on the first stroke, but when you just sort of let everything happen, and just so you understand what happens when you're dropping it, all you're doing is you're holding the stick there, and you're just kind of letting the stick do the work, and just kind of doing this. Let it all drop. Right? And you're just controlling that. I'm not doing anything with fingers or anything. But in order to get that velocity or the stick moving a little bit faster, by getting these finger motions and having these prepared after that first stroke, you give your opportunity to give like a huge amount of velocity for that speed of the second note. And that's what those finger motion is all about. Now, one of the greatest ways to practice diddles is to start by accenting the second note. For those who do play traditional grip, which I'd be willing to bet most of you will not be, but when we talk about finger motion on the left hand becomes this, it's actually with the thumb. And your thumb is going over top of it. So your finger motion that's here is actually only one, which is the thumb, which is actually quite interesting because the thumb, if you look at like your entire like sort of anatomy, its middle finger and thumb are actually your most connected points to the rest of your arm. So there's actually a lot of power that can get over top of that on the thumb. So your thumb becomes the finger motion that's here, but again, it's this, and then the rebound on the left hand becomes more of a rotational point. Nice. I love that there's Twitch emotes for that. But it's the same thing here. Now as you practice it, because the common thing is drop diddles, essentially, we want to give the second note more velocity, which comes from that finger motion. So one of the greatest ways to practice is to practice this thing of hitting the drum for the first note and then accenting the second note on the diddle. Now, as you practice this is super, super easy to get into this thing of you're not actually playing diddles, because remember what a diddle is one stroke, two notes. And if you watch on the screen, curb your diddles, that's exactly right. The arm only goes down once, and two notes happen. If you're doing, okay, I'm doing this exercise, I'm playing diddles, well, no, you're playing two notes. So the difference is this. This is two notes. This is a diddle. All right, now, accenting the second note as you play the diddles is a really good exercise. So you're getting a lot more velocity for that second note. All right, and that starts to work on your finger control and also getting that rebound. And as you start to get faster, you'll notice that although a lot of times you can play this like double stroke like this, as you get faster, you get really, really tense and everything starts to shake. The room starts to shake. Your brain starts to freeze up. And oh God, the carpal tunnel that you get real quick. Oh, stretch it out. Oh God, all these things are because you're not utilizing the proper technique, which is you're forcing a lot of things that are happening. Now, let's talk about this back to this motion here, which is the downstroke, the upstroke, the downstroke, and the upstroke. When we come down to it, what are we using muscle power for? It's going to be muscle power is only going to be used on the downstrokes. Again, we're only trying to get velocity, but we want to make sure that we get a good rebound point coming off of the drum as well. So here's the deal. Muscle power coming down through the very first stroke on the first downstroke is all arm, wrist, and finger for the first stroke. As this happens and this hits, we're allowing the stick to rebound with diddles, but we're not utilizing any muscle power to do that. All that we're doing is allowing the stick to bounce back up, but we're just controlling it. I'll do that in a very slow motion so you guys can see that motion. Comes down, hits the drum surface, fingers only. Hits the drum surface, fingers only, and the stick is doing this work, not me. And if you notice, even as I'm standing here and doing it, is that I'm pulling the stick up, but this hand, my right hand, is not doing anything to make the stick come up this way. I'm not flicking it. I'm not doing any kind of weird stuff like this. I'm letting it hit the surface, and then the rebound, and my fingers are literally just following the stick as it bounces back up. So this upstroke does not require any muscle power. The fingers do this next one, and again, this next finger motion is not about power, it's about velocity. So it's about basically squeezing the stick into, and does this take millions of repetitions to get right? Yes. Yes. The finger motion is all about velocity, so it's about this. You guys can try this at home. Take your hand and just go and try to clap with one hand. Can you guys hear it? Can anybody do that? Everybody try that at home? Try to clap and get all 3 of your fingers or all 4 of your fingers to slap the palm of your hand to make a clap sound. The idea is that that thing happens in a very quick velocity, and that's how you get that second stroke with good velocity. Fulcrum is still in the same spot. The 3 notes that are 3 fingers that are remaining are the things that add that velocity point to it. But you could try just getting a clap sound in the palm of your hand. That's essentially what you need to do. A bajillion repetitions is about right. And then the final stroke is allowing that second rebound, because you still got velocity coming from that next stroke, and it's allowing that rebound to be absorbed by the entire wrist, fingers, and arm, so you get back to original position. So you have position 1, boom, fingers. I'll do it up here so you guys can see it. Everything, fingers bump down, that's the motion that we use, get a nice velocity on it, then everything else bounces back up and allowing that rebound to happen. Bounce and repeat a lot. Here's how a typical exercise will work like this, guys. When you start to work through your diddle motions, you go through and you'll start playing them. I'll give you a couple exercises too to play, but basically it's not so much about it's not about so much reading the rhythms as it is like getting the right concept of like what it is. A very good one to start with is like diddle, 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 tap, tap, diddle, 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 tap, tap. Bum 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 bum. Also known as the rock and roll beat. We talked about that earlier. That rock and roll beat. Also that Phil Collins fill. All right. All right, so that's the initial exercise of diddle, 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 tap, tap, diddle, 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 tap, tap. And when you start this, as every single exercise, and this is more importantly to get your technique of it correct than it is to get speed. If you try to go for speed too early, what you will always get, and I've seen this happen with thousands of students, is you're going, I want to roll right now. Go. All right, it's kind of good. I just got to clean up the stuff. It's really hard for me to play with that technique, by the way, but it's okay. I just got to make sure that it gets the right. Okay. Oh, I got it. I got it. Oh, guys. Oh, it's happening. It's happening. It's kind of happening, but it's actually not. And here's the reason. What you're doing is you're adjusting your tempo in order for your uncontrolled bounces to be in the right space. Yeah, they always want to go ham at first. I'm telling you they do. They always want to go ham at first. Every single drummer wants to do this. I want to learn how to play really, really fast. That's what I want. I want to play fast, really fast. Wait, I want to go fast. We're going to go fast? This is not the right way to go, though. What you want to do is build the correct technique, because the correct technique is going to allow you to get faster quicker. I know, it's crazy, but working it slow, and as you do it, watch your arm. Practice in front of a mirror. That's always a good thing. If you notice, I'm trying to look at you guys as much as possible, but I'm watching my own technique here too. Having a camera is amazingly beneficial that I'm going, oh, there's a couple technique things that I could work on too, if you know what I'm saying. But you're working your technique. And again, when I define technique, most modern drummers don't realize that a roll is a set of strokes, not just freestyle. No, that's incorrect. Drummers know what a roll is. Everybody else doesn't. Everybody else thinks a roll is like, can you just play a roll? You know what they want? You know what they want? Here's what they want, guys. when they hear a roll, all right, you got the beat for a little bit, right? We got the beat going. And they're like, can you do a roll at the end of that? They're like, no. Not that. Well, that was a roll. They say, no, a roll. Yeah, a drum roll. You know, doing a drum roll. Jeez, come on, man. What are you, a drummer? Yeah, are you a musician? You know what those things are called? Oh, that was what I wanted. That was a drum roll. That's called a drum fill. Fill is the word that you were looking for. So please don't utilize drum terms when you're saying that. But this is, yeah, exactly, Hambo. But a roll, what a roll is. All right, let's talk about this. What a roll is literally using multiple bounce strokes in order to fill a musical note. We'll talk about the rotation, the notation of rolls, because this gets a little bit more complex for sure. But let's break down to what it is. That's the terminology. Guilty of not knowing what an actual drum roll is? I know. And it's totally fine. This is why we have that, right? It's the point of this. I'll define it. A roll, a roll equals stromboli. A roll is when you use multiple bounce strokes. This is what a roll is. Now, a roll can be moved around on different surfaces, but moving on the surfaces does not indicate it being a roll. A roll is that you're utilizing multiple bounces to get fast strokes. In a lot of cases, that's going to be 2 rights, 2 lefts. That's what a roll is. That's the rudiment. Literally, it's the rudiment called a roll. When you move around the drums, a fill can be, getting that extra little bit, like in the middle of the beat to kind of propel you to the next section of music. That's called a drum fill. A lot of people will say, I want a drum roll, but that's not what they mean. I always made this joke too in the studio. I was like, oh, purple. You wanted a purple beat. Why didn't you just say that, guys? Just say you wanted it was purple. That's what you wanted. I was like, because common terminology to talk with other musicians is a really, really fun thing altogether. We'll have a whole discussion about that, about how different types of musicians, guitar players, singers, and how they think about songs in very, very common ways that are they're said, like things like measures and the counts and all these different things are sort of open to interpretation. You just have to learn how to interpret your fellow musicians to get the right sound that they want. But yes, back to it. A roll is a multiple bounce stroke. That's all that is. There are many different types of rolls. The most common is two on each hand. 2 on each hand. So right, left, right, left, right, left. All right. Practicing it slow, getting that rebound, getting all of those things together is the important bit, because you want to have a very good, consistent machine gun type sound. And if you get that machine gun type sound, that's what you're going for, but it's about getting the same velocity out of the first stroke and the second stroke, but getting those from 2 different points, arm and also from finger. Oh, so it starts off slow. Cool, and this is the very first lesson, guys, that we are going to start talking about how to practice drum rudiments, and this is straight up 1923, and it's worked since then for many, many drummers, of how to practice something. So part of this is like, obviously getting the concept of what all the things are, but the other part of it is to kind of understand how do we practice it? How do we get all those things happening? So check this out, guys, right? We got our diddle strokes, we got our basic points. That does take, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it takes a ton of work to get that exactly right, to get all the things that you need to get into place to get a good, solid diddle strokes. Does take quite a lot of practice, but that's where you need to be diligent. How to practice it, practicing it. When we do, you do need a wireless headset, I know, but they're so expensive for a decent mic. This is a cheapo lapel, but the cheapo lapel allows me to sort of move around a little bit. I'm getting used to it, though. I'm getting used to it. All right, here we go, though. This is a concept of open, close, open exercise. Open, close exercise. Open exercise is basically this. Slow, to fast, then back to slow. Now this is important. Has anybody here done some workouts, done some lifting? Have you done any? I know that we're on the internet and we're all sitting in front of a computer screen or a phone or sitting on a couch or something like that. But has anybody in some point in their life done some sort of lifting? If you have, you'll know that lifting a lot of the weight, or like, just a barbell, is like half of the exercise. The other part is moving it back down. It's very important to be able to control it, not just on the way up, oh, got it, and then just let it drop and slam back down on you. You don't want to do that. You lift and then you go back down, because what it works is like the opposite parts of the muscles, or it allows you to really start to work way more control. So slow, open, close, open, or slow, fast to slow is a really, really good way. Do you even lift, bro? Dude, I don't skip leg day, I can tell you that. Let me tell you. But yes, it's always about going up and back down. That's a very important thing as you do exercises. Same thing as it comes down to our rudiments. Now, this exercise typically applies mostly to when you're working a technique like diddles, like rolls, this type of thing, that you're trying to start to build up speed. And it allows you to get to start to work on that speed, but still start to be able to focus on the technique of all the different things that go into into that rudiment. Slow, fast, slow. This is open, close, open. Slow, fast, slow. Now, there's right ways and wrong ways to do this. Here is the initial thing that you'll hear quite often. And let's see if anybody can pick up exactly what's wrong with this. All right, open, close, open exercise. Back to cam. Here we go. Here, very typical. This is there's something wrong with this, but you tell me what it is. Anybody have an idea what was wrong with that? I'll play it the right way. Strokes are more consistent the second time. It's true. There's two things that happen when people first start doing the open, close, open exercise that are sort of incorrect, and they're not really working your control. I'm going to tell you this, from the closed, the faster bit to the last slow bit, one of the hardest things. If you can do that in a nice, consistent fashion, it is so crucial and makes the world of difference in like working your exercise. But there's two things that went wrong on the first one. Number one is that we sort of shelved it. Instead of doing like, what you kind of want when you do open, close, open is every single note is a little bit faster than the next one before. A slow accelerando, as it is for the proper musical term. What people will typically do is they'll shelf it. They'll keep it at this tempo and then they'll jump up in an abrupt sort of fashion. All right, so you don't want to shelf it. You want to constantly get progressively faster, but not in a shelving type of manner. We just want to get a very, very consistent flow as we go through all the different parts. Now, the other thing that goes wrong is what will happen is people and try to burn through like the faster points, but almost past the point where they can have control over it, of like a faster roll, and then they kind of burn out at the end of it, and then they just go boom, 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 boom. And they take 10 minutes to get to the fast part, and then 1 second to get back to the slow part. So again, it's important to have that slow decelerando happen at the same rate of speed as the accelerando happened. So where if you can only do it at this tempo, to be able to slowly go back down, trust me, this takes so much more control to do it this way. So much more control to do it. And remember that all those diddle strokes we talked about, all those things are in there. It allows you to do that. Now, when you first begin the exercise of open, close, open, maybe this is it. Maybe this is your top. And that's fine. Again, what you're trying to do is you're not really, it's an exercise that you're working for speed, but you're not thinking speed in your head. What you're thinking is, am I doing all the stuff right? Am I still playing diddles? Am I doing this tensey? Oh, am I super tensed up? No. Oh, okay. That's not going to work. Oh, hi. Moving scenes, and I'm also typing in chat. You don't want to be focusing. You want to be focusing on your technique. And again, what technique is the way that you play and the way that you approach the drum when you're actually not thinking about how you play or how you approach the drum. So it's more like you're thinking about a beat, you're doing this, and you start playing. When you start playing, guess what? Whatever you're doing for your arm motions, that is your technique. Making changes to the technique are very, very difficult. That's where the exercises come into play. So this right here, this open, close, open stuff is super, super important for getting that right feel and that right flow for how you approach the drum and your diddle technique. And I promise you this, guys, open, close, open, utilize the right strokes with fingers, with this. It takes a long time. Have the discipline to do it. But once you get into that, it's going to improve your roll quality. It's going to improve the way you sound on the drum. It's going to improve the way just all the stuff sounds. And it's going to make it a lot easier for you to actually play rolls. See this right here? I can literally do this for, well, except for that stick click that I have there. That requires more coffee. Hold on. But literally do this because what's happening right now, just take a look. Watch my arms. How much muscle power do you think this takes for me to do this? We're doing this little thing called ergonomics. And the ergonomics basically means we're trying to put things in the most comfortable position for our body to be in. And we're also trying to utilize as little muscle power as possible to get the most out of our drum strokes. And that kind of brings me to one of my favorite things. Is if you guys have seen a drummer that is just sweating their buns off, right? They're just playing like crazy. And you could hear like just a crazy drum fill, but they're just working so hard for it. My favorite drum fills are when you see this behind the kit and what you hear is like, and this is what you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Where did all those notes come from? That's one of my favorite things, because when you see a drummer doing very little strokes like that and you hear a ton of notes coming out, that means that's a very ergonomic drummer and it's somebody that's played and practiced for quite some time and got their technique right. Some of my favorite fills are when the drummer doesn't look like they're doing anything, but tons of notes and tons of notes are coming out. So there's the diddles, guys, and that's the diddle stroke. There is a roll. That's the technique for it. And there's a bit of a practice exercise, which is open, close, open. Really does not need to be written down, because if, here's the thing. I honestly don't even recommend putting a piece of music in front of you as you're working the technique things. And the reason is you don't want to be thinking notes and counts while you're wanting to focus on an individual component of your playing. The individual component of your playing in this case is what technique are you using to play diddles. You want to be focusing on that. And the more and more you do it, the more and more you do it, the more natural it becomes for you. And it becomes something that's like, literally, I woke up and I'm like, all right, yeah, let's play some diddles, man. It's all good. And it becomes something that you can just kind of do literally in your sleep. It's one of those things. All right, that is technique. And again, no written exercise, because you want to be focusing on how you're playing, not necessarily what you're playing. How you're playing is more important than what you're playing. So that's how you work on technique stuff. That is the open, close, open. And let's talk briefly about notation on that. How do we see this? What does it look like in music, guys? All right, so we got some rolls. Okay, and I mean, they sound cool. They sound like a lot more it's faster notes on drums. Everybody wants to learn how to do rolls because What does every drummer want to do when they first start out? I want to learn how to play fast. Every drummer's a race car driver in at heart. What do you want to do? I want to play fast. Okay, cool. You want to play fast. Work your fingers. 2 things. Yep. Fingers. Finger strength and all of those types of things. All right, so here we go, guys. Diddle strokes. We're going to come up with a brand new notation today. I hope you guys are excited. This one is going to blow your mind. Are you guys ready for it? A diddle stroke. A diddle stroke and how this is written. Okay, if we go through an exercise, essentially what a diddle stroke is going to be 2 notes in a row. Now, how do I know if I'm going to be playing a diddle or not? The real answer to that is speed, right? If this is 2 16th notes that are going to be both right hands, or if we finish it out, 2 left hands right behind that. If it's going to be fast, you're not going to play these as single strokes. You're going to play them as diddles, diddle, diddle, all right? It's just the way it is. So tempo is going to dictate how you play each individual note every single time, even if it's written as a diddle. But there is a very, very common shorthand instead of seeing this. The shorthand is as follows. We're going to start with a squeaky marker, just a quarter note, okay? If we take a quarter note and we're going to put a slash this way through it, and that slash means that this is going to become more than 1 note. Dilly dilly indeed, Fire Islander. And that's all I've thought about all lesson. Dilly dilly. I love it. When you add a slash, that means we're adding 1 other note to it. Now the slash actually means that we're adding a note on half of this beat. So for instance, this, when you see that slash, it actually means, because it's a quarter note, becomes 2 1/8 notes. You're probably not going to see this too often, though. That's not going to happen too often. But that's also going to mean it's 2 right hands, or like this. It's kind of the shorthand. Now, it doesn't make a lot of sense to write it this way when you can write it that way, because that's just 1/8 notes. So normally this will happen on like faster notes. For instance, 16th notes, but the same things apply. So if we have some 16th notes, let's take the first note here, and then we have a slash on it like that. And typically, there's also a tie related to it, because if you remember back to our notation lesson, we talked about note durations. Now, if I say on a drum, the difference of that note and the difference of that note in terms of sound, if those all happen on the one, here's the first one. This is what this is going to sound like on drums. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, cool. This is what this one's going to sound like on drums. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. They are very, very different notes. This one is a heck of a lot faster. But because we don't deal with note durations, we deal with note start points as drummers, they sound exactly the same. If they are occurring on the same beat, they're going to sound exactly the same. When we start to get into rolls, that's when I said, this is when we start to deal with note durations. And that's where that tie comes into place. We're taking a 16th note, but because we're filling the space between, this 16th note and the next one, it's becoming like we're starting to deal with a length of time rather than just a series of impacts. However, this is a roll. The slash means typically going to mean diddle. This is going to be a right. But if this also is going to translate to, again, a slash means you're going to be adding a note. What's up, Sean Canadizo? I think we got it. What's up? How are you doing today? When you add the slash note to it, we're adding half of it, in this case 16 notes, which means half of that will be a 30-second note, and we're going to be utilizing it as a diddle. So you're starting to see this. That's going to turn into that 30-second note double right hand. Now this could get a little bit crazy, and honestly this is a little bit more difficult to read. I'll give you the full example. So if we take a group of 16 notes, and we'll just add some basic, drag. These are called drags, by the way. When you have single diddles in the middle of some sort of phrase, or just a single diddle, they're known as drags. And trust me, there is there's names for rudiments that are they're gonna be all out there, guys. It's crazy. Like there's grandma rudiments. You ready for grandma? You guys want to hear a grandma? Literally, it's called a grandma. For the drummers out there in the world, it's a herta or a blurta or a, however you want to say that, but it's only accenting the left hand. So that's this rudiment. All right, and then you actually do the left hand. All right, that's the grandma. There's all kinds of crazy rudiment names out there and hybrid rudiment names. But in this case, it's known as a drag. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. It's known as a drag, and yeah. All right, cool. So we take this, and I'm going to add a drag here and a drag here. And I'll go ahead and put the ties in so it makes it a little cleaner and a little bit easier to see. But again, this is going to be right, left, and this will be a double right, a left, a right, and then a double left. Now, if I write this out in like full 16th note, or full like extended sort of phrase, we are going to have, it would look like this. Now, this is not impossible to read, but I'm going to tell you guys right now, it's definitely a little bit more complex. Did I add too many? Yeah, I did. Un momento. Too many note heads, not enough coffee. All right, so again, if we read back through it, it's this versus this crazy thing, right? So that's going to be one. Oops, I say one and then write R. All right, so that's a one, a dot in there, and I still did too many. Wrong, you failed the test. All right, here we go. There you go. Like a that, like a that, and like a that. All right, so there we go. That's correct. And then a note after the there. This makes it a little easier to read than this does. Hard to read and write. Yeah, it is hard to read and write. But again, this is, remember we talked about like recognizing patterns? This is one of those things that it's not written this way very often, and there's reasons for that. It's written this way typically if we're going to have not diddle strokes. Again, these slash marks, you know what? The slash marks is one of those moments that I have never seen. I'm not going to say it doesn't exist, but when you see the slash marks, they pretty much mean you're playing a double stroke there. You're going to play a double stroke or a roll at that point. I'm trying to think of any exception I've ever found to that rule, and I can't honestly think of one. So this would be written out this way if it was like a sticking of right, left, like that, instead of this, right, right, left, if that makes sense. So when you see this, pretty much you're going to be playing a roll. I hate to say always, because every time you say always, there's going to be like, well, hold on, there's that one case, that's the one thing that this thing, I got this piece of music that happened in this one time, 1976, and somebody wrote it out, and they said, it's going to be, it's not actually a roll, it's a full out, you get the idea. It's never always never, but I'm going to tell you this. When you see this, you're going to be playing diddles. So this becomes this diddle motion where you have this drag that happens there. Now that becomes the, again, half of the note. We're splitting in half and adding it as a double stroke. In this case, that would be a, this is going to be one, E, and with a double stroke on one and a double stroke on So if you do on the pad or on the drum, we'll go to pad for this one. That would be like 1 E and a 2, 1 E and a 2. The only thing always really applies to is exceptions. There's always an exception. That's also true. And what's up, Megadom? How you doing? All right, so when you see it in music, it's typically that little slash mark that you'll see through the middle of the note staff, by the way, is going to indicate a diddle. And you can combine these and put them together into making more complex notes and more complex rolls as well. All right, so let's talk about our basic strokes, guys, our basic rolls. Now, when you go to the Percussion Arts Society 40 rudiments, 40 essential rudiments, you'll see a 5-stroke roll, 7-stroke roll, a 9-stroke roll, and I think an 11-stroke roll. Okay, yeah, those are the things, but I'll explain what all these are. They're basically the same thing. It's just a matter of how to interpret it. So check this out. 5-stroke roll, 5-stroke. 5-stroke roll. Now this is going to sound really nuts, but anybody have any idea why it's called a 5-stroke roll? 1 E and. Guess what? There's 5 notes in it. I know, complex, right? right, right, left, left, right. 5 total notes. 1 E in. She said it sounds like pads upstairs. Got it. It is. But yeah, so if we do our 5-stroke roll, or like a 1 E and, and we put a diddle on 1 E and then stop on and. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. Applying that to drum kit around. Let's go ahead and put that on the right side of the stick. All right, now I'm doing some kind of crazy stuff. Oh, our neighbor came by with a thing. So you should be all right. But yeah, 5-stroke roll, right, right, left, left, right, 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 left, left, right. And I encourage you as drum set players to move around the kit as much as possible. Incorporating the feet, we'll talk about it a little bit. I'll answer the question if somebody has it, but split 5-stroke roll. Very, very common things, guys. That is the notation. Now, let's talk about the other notation, which is a lot of times when we do a roll, we're going to be utilizing a lot of note durations. That's one of the big things. One of the note durations are some of the biggest things that we need to start to worry about. Now, we can have multiple of these diddle strokes that are here. The next one that you're typically going to see is if you see something like this, which is going to be a full stroke. Now, I want you to remember that it's sort of like this. And I say sort of because this is one of those, whoever wrote it down might intend for something different. The way to interpret it, though, the correct way, is that each one of these slashes indicates you're going to be adding another note to this length of actual hits. So if I add 2 slashes, that means we're going to be doing 2 more notes. But that doesn't mean we're doing it like a 3. It means that we're adding a little bit, but you're not going to see the 2 very often. What you'll see is 3 here. And what that means is we're going to be adding 3 more notes to this. And in this case, it's going to be a full roll, and we're going to be dividing it in half, and in half, and in half again. So let's take that into consideration. Every single slash means we're dividing it in half, and then we're going to be doing the note duration for how many strokes we're going to have that fill this note duration. It's a little bit complex, but I'll show you the easy patterns to it. Remember the rules though. Every single slash is going to divide the note in half. So we take a quarter note, divide it in half by 1, divide it in half again, and divide it in half again. That gets us to our 30-second notes. So check this out. We're dividing it in half each single time. So if I have 2, what that actually means is that we're going to be playing a roll of 16th notes. If we have a single slash, that means we're going to be playing a roll with 8th notes. And if we have a triple slash, on a quarter note that is, we're going to be playing a roll with 30-second notes. Does that all make sense to everybody? I hope that does. Each slash means you're dividing it in half again. It's almost like you're slashing it. Would calling it a stutter be right? A stutter? No, I wouldn't say that this is a stutter. What we're doing is we're filling the note. The slash basically means this. We're filling this note duration. Remember I said rolls are the only thing that we really start to talk about that are utilizing note durations in terms of drums. We're filling a quarter note. If there's 1 slash, that means, okay, we split it in half only once. If there's 2 slashes, we split it in half twice. If there's 3 slashes, you'll split it in half 3 times. That's what it means. It's like you're taking a quarter note and slashing it in half. So when you see this quarter note, most of the time when you see a quarter note and a roll on a quarter note, it's going to be with 3 slashes because I'm not going to say always, but that is the case. Every single slash divides it in half. This is typically what they mean to fill an entire roll, or also known as the 9-stroke roll. 9-stroke roll. Guess why it's called a 9-stroke roll, guys? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then a release. 9. That's why it's the 9-stroke roll. What's up, Unicorn? How are you doing today? Hope you're having a fantastic one. So to reiterate, guys, we have our quarter note, and when we see the slashes, that means we're going to be filling that note duration, and this goes for everything. Filling the note duration when we see a slash. Each slash tells us what rhythm we're going to be filling it with. 1 slash equals 8th notes, in half by 1. 2 slashes means 16th notes. I don't see this one. I don't know if I've ever seen this one, but you may see it from time to time. 3 slashes equals 32nd notes. And I'll just put like that. So filling up that entire beat, but with what rhythm is how many slashes that go into it. So some of the slashes are more of a play this many notes in the count duration. That's a good way to put it too, Bekadam. I like that. That's a good explanation for it. As drummers, we need to know what that is. Oh, good. You didn't know you played drums? 25 years, and been teaching for 20 actually too. So that is what the slash note is. That is what the notation is. I'll be honest with you guys. If you're not a drummer, that you're probably not going to see this too often, because this is our equivalent from a drummer standpoint that we are going to be playing a note duration. And many times, not always though, but many times, it's also incorporated with a tie. It kind of tells you where to go, or the next bit. Now, all of these things apply to further down the line as well. So here, let's take for example, por ejemplo. That's just from the quarter note standpoint for the making the most sense out of it. But check this out. If we go 8th notes with a single slash, that means we're going to be doing 2 16th notes. We're going to be filling up an 8th note space with slicing it in half 1 time. Sometimes you see as a wind player called a flutter tongue. Oh, maybe. You know, that one I don't know. You might be right, Hambo. A flutter tongue? Okay. I can see that. I can see that being the case. If we take a 16th note or an 8th note and then do 2 slashes on it, that means, hey, we're going to be filling up that 8th note space, but this time we're going to be filling it up with 32nd notes. Now, this one I definitely have seen. I have definitely seen this one before. And a lot of times you'll see it like this, right, for the 5-stroke roll, or that can also be written as 16th notes with a single slash on them, like so. Exactly the same thing. So this is dividing it, it's filling the same 8th note space, but with a half and then half again, or 32nd notes, and again, rolls. You're eating Peeps. That sounds sugary. Eighth note dividing it in half twice, or making it 32nd notes, and again, playing it as diddles. And then here we're taking 2 16th notes and dividing it in half only once, which equates to exactly the same thing. So this here and this here both equal these 32nd notes on that. Hope that makes sense. It's not as crazy as it sounds as you start to read through music though, because although it looks really complex, it's not that bad as you read through it. So that is the slash marks or rolls. Rolls. And the different stroke rolls, 5-stroke, 7-stroke, 5, 7, 9, 11. I think there's like a 4-stroke rough. There's a lot of different interpretations to it. But essentially what they are is a 5-stroke is incorporating of 5 notes, or this again. Same concept. Remember dividing in half, those are exactly the same thing. A 7 is going to be, ending on the count. Joop, joop, and it ends there. That's 7. Or I guess we could write it like this, but this is a little bit confusing. It's technically right, but that would be a 7-stroke roll. That would be a 7-stroke roll. It'd be technically right. That's a little weird to write it that way. You'd see it more like this. 9-stroke roll is, well, you know, the whole thing. So this one you would see this, or more commonly, the first thing we talked about of that, 9-stroke roll. But essentially, it's just incorporating a lot of rolls. What else is taking notes? Yeah. Listening to my peeps in chat. Oh yeah, no one better be doing the other thing that peeps implies. Oh God. So yeah, cool. So these are all the different notes, and they have these written as individual rudiments on the PAS 40 essential rudiments thing. But I mean, here's the thing, right, guys? We do an exercise, and this is one of the very common ones that I do, called 30-second note sequencing. Sing? S or C? I don't know. All right, but basically what it is you take our groups of 16 notes. We start with a full check, and then we're going to be doing a diddle on the first note, and then a diddle on the first 2 notes, then a diddle on the first 3 notes. So what you end up doing is you're getting all these different variations of all the different rolls, all within one single exercise. So 30-second note sequencing is a cumulative thing as an exercise that I play quite often, actually, as a warm-up. So we'll start with this. It's just like straight 16 notes. And then we're going to be adding a single diddle for the first one. And after we're done with that, we're going to be adding the second note as well. Oh my God. Let me adjust this real quick here because I'm getting some weird trigger action on this. Cannot wait for the TD30, by the way. All right, here we go. I have a thought. Hold on a sec. I wonder where I'm getting those weird triggers because it's actually a little loose, which is possible. Where's the cone on this thing? Oh, that one right there. I wonder. All right, we're just going to tighten this up just a hair. Let's see if that's why we're getting those weird triggers for it. I think that might have been it. Cool. Interestingly enough, you do need to tune your electronic drums. Weird. All right, cool. So 30-second note sequencing is a pretty sweet little exercise that we have. Basically, what we're doing is we're incorporating an exercise that's getting all those different types of rolls that are in there. But a lot of times you do this as, you know, doing a little bit of a fill. Just adding a little 5-stroke roll. Add a little bit of flavor to a drum beat. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. Thank you very much, Unicorn. Do appreciate it. Yeah, I've been doing it for quite some time. But that's adding a little bit of flavor, and it's one of the greatest ways to start to add a little bit more, you know, it's kind of spice to your drum beats. And again, from the ground up, from the beginning of the lesson to this point, I know that I'm kind of like jumping like, all right, we're going from Starting to work on the diddles all the way to, let's incorporate it into some sort of drum fill or something like that. But it just kind of gives you like a point of aspiration, like, hey, we're going to be getting into all these crazy things. All those things are just diddles, and here's the cool thing, right? Watch my left hand. Watch what my left hand does. And all of that is diddles. And you can incorporate that in a little bit more of extra stuff. And personally, one of my favorite little fills. I love the 3-stroke. The 3-limb roll, I like to call it. Moving his chair on the other hand so fast the camera can't catch it. Yeah, you're going to see that a lot. And I like the foot cam, guys. I hope you guys like that too. All right, that is from the ground up, how to work diddles, working it through the pad, getting those double strokes versus like not getting 2 strokes there, 2 strokes per note, utilizing the fingers as your rebound points. So you get that. We talked about open, close, open, making sure that we start fast or start slow, go to fast, and go back to slow. But the important aspects of that are working it so, again, it's like lifting. It's not just pushing the weight up, but it's also allowing that weight to come back down. That's a very important thing. So the deal is one stroke, 2 notes come out, but allowing the fingers to get the rebound. And then again, velocity of the second note. We're not dropping it. We're giving that velocity with the fingers. And again, the open, close, open. It's important to slowly come back down for control points. Very, very important. Very, very important to get those control points happening through that. And then further on exercises onto the notation. We start working on the slash marks today. I may actually do individual videos. What do you guys think? And give me some feedback on this. If I'm going to put this up on YouTube, which I will, I'm going to upload the streams for it. We cover a ton of stuff during a stream, but I think we should do smaller segments for YouTube. What do you guys think? Like, I think I should do a whole video just on the slash. You guys think that's a good idea? I think that might be a good thing. So like if somebody's practicing drums and saying, all right, well, I don't remember what the slash means. I have a video just about that, rather than trying to scan through like a 2-hour thing to try to figure out where the stuff is. I think individual smaller segments may be good. Yeah, I'm thinking about that. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. It's all good. Guys, when we come back, what would be a good length? 15 minutes, I think. 15 minutes a lesson, I think. Something like that. When we come back, we're going to be doing the second part of our lesson today. Rebound diddles and paradiddles. Ooh, what are paradiddles? That sounds spicy. They're what I like to call the drum set God rudiment, by the way. Yeah, smaller segments would be good. I think you guys are all on the same page with that. Yep. Paradiddles when I come back, guys. Going to take a quick little break. Do stick around. We got a whole bunch more coming up right after this. Don't go anywhere, guys. A bunch more coming up right after this, where we're going to be getting into that paradiddle God rudiment. Be right back, guys. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We have returned. We have returned with a little Professor Woodshed. Getting into the next bit now. The God Rudiment. The God Rudiment, as we like to call it. The Paradiddle, guys. The Paradiddle. Hope you guys are excited for the next bit of the lesson. The Paradiddle is a super, really good one for us. All right, guys. Let's jump right to it. Let's get our markers ready. Let's get our board ready. Because we're going to get into Paradiddles today, guys. Paradiddles are a very essential rudiment for a lot of different reasons, but let's start with the basics of what a paradiddle is. Paradiddle is a combination of our singles and doubles, typically played in a 16th note fashion as such, and the sticking is right, left, right, right, and when we play two of them together, we're going to have a combination of two different things. The next one will be left, right, left, left. Now also, one of the other things that occurs when we're playing the paradiddle is we are going to accent the beginning of the paradiddle. Now, all drum set rudiments typically fall into sort of a automatic peak fashion, meaning that when you say the name of the rudiment, it typically is the sound of the rudiment as well. So in this case, it's a paradiddle or paradiddle. All right, so you got like all those things all together. So these are basic paradiddles. Now, why do we call this the God rudiment? The big reason I call this the God rudiment is because this is the first time that we have an exercise, something that we're playing, that we're building into, that has a little bit of combinations between single notes, single strokes, and double strokes. And it's the first one that we start to get those things happening. Single strokes and double strokes in a consistent rhythm. And that is so incredibly important as you're moving around the drum set because it opens up an entire crazy world of things that you can do all around the kit. So let's take a look at some paradiddles, guys. Some basic paradiddles, and we'll do them over here on the drum set today, over on the drum pad here. Let's get a little adjustment as well. Let's adjust this up just a tad. Just a tad. All right. So on the paradiddles themselves, it's a right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. That's our sticking for it. But our paradiddles are going to have a little bit of an accent on it as well. All right, now this is incorporating what we talked about earlier, which is our double strokes and our diddles, but also our single strokes as well. Woo! Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. It's a big exercise to start working again with that open, close, open, and getting them nice and smooth. And we want to practice paradiddles in two different ways. The first one is going to be that lovely exercise of adding the accents to it. And the second one is going to be keeping them all nice and consistent. So once again, paradiddles with accents. And then paradiddles without accents. But all the things are about keeping that nice and consistent and to get those differences between single strokes and double strokes all working in conjunction with each other to make all the things happen. Combinations of diddles and singles. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is that so important around the drum set? All right, so paradiddles. First of all, when you play just straight paradiddles and start just doing something simple as splitting it up between two different surfaces, you start to get this crazy sort of sound. For instance, we're going to take this basic rudiment of paradiddles, and we're just going to take our right hand and place it on our hi-hat. This would be the acoustic version, but on the electronic version it's here. And then we're going to keep our left hand on the snare drum, and we're going to keep our accents exactly the same place too. So we have our accents on the paradiddles, again. And all I'm doing is taking the right hand and moving it up to a hi-hat. Now, a cool thing that happens when you do that, number one, is because our accents are on our downbeats, 1, 2, 3, and 4, you kind of get like a groove to it. But because we also have this alternating sticking because of the double, right, left, left, the second accent happens to fall right on the snare drum backbeat, or 2 and 4. So you have that whole. So you basically get a groove happening with just your paradiddles. And all you got to do to make it spice it up just a little bit is add a couple kick drums in there. And you can play a little quicker and just kind of get that groove. Now, the big thing about this, and this is going to be those lessons that we always talk about. We're going to be doing this all the time during live lessons. So that's going to be one of the big things. All the time during the live lessons, I'm going to be taking two aspects to it. Number one is the basic portions of rudiments in general. And then the second aspect is like how to start to apply this knowledge to something that actually makes musical sense. And as we go through the paradiddle, and because it is that God rudiment, I think it's the perfect opportunity to start to take that concept of when you have a rudiment and to start thinking about notes on the page for practice, but thinking about it in terms of sound for performance aspects, it becomes super important. So we're going to talk about strong beats here for a little bit. Strong beats and the basics of a groove. All right, so let's jump right into that. So check this out, dudes. Check this out. So as we go through our paradiddle on the board, we have right, left, 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 left. We have our accents on the downbeats, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now that's important that we recognize 1, 2, 3, and 4 as the accent points, because that becomes one of the essential parts to the groove. I'll break this down a little bit differently. So we have our paradiddles, but again, pattern recognition is one of the big things that we want to talk about here, guys. Pattern recognition is huge. Pattern recognition is absolutely enormous. So if we take all the extra notes out, and that's what I want you to think about the paradiddles is extra notes. As we're applying this, again, this is the part of the lesson where we're taking application of knowledge and making it into more of an artistic portion of what sound are we creating versus this is the exercise of what you play to get this stuff happening. But if we strip away the extra notes of the paradiddle and leave only the accents, we're actually going to get a hi-hat, we're going to get a snare drum, we're going to get a hi-hat, and we're going to get a snare drum. Oh, okay, cool. So, all right, quarter notes. That seems pretty simple, and it is. It's a pretty simple groove. But these are the basic parts. Now, I'll start with the kick drums that I was playing there in the example, which is the kick drum on the 1 and the kick drum on the end of 3. So let's explore this just a little bit. We're going to explore this sort of beat for just a little bit. Maybe we take a little bit of extra hi-hats. Let's give it some consistency. Let's go ahead and throw hi-hats on the 2 and 4 as well, just to kind of give it sort of a flow to it. But that becomes our basic, like, sort of quarter note groove. Now check this out. This is where it becomes really, really cool. By extracting the sound from a more complex rudiment, you break it down to its essential strong beats for a groove. So in our example here, we have paradiddles, which we were playing. but the groove itself is. You may ask yourselves, why is that important? Why is that important to get all of those things happening? Now, the reason is because you don't want to play beats that are strictly an exercise. You want to be able to be a little bit fluid. Now, as I play through that, you may listen to it, you may hear it and go, well, the one with the paradiddles sounds like it's more interesting, it's more complex and things like that. And you're right, and that's kind of one of those things that you want to remember that thought. Okay, when I play paradiddles on this sort of like split thing, you get a much more interesting sounding beat. However, that might not be the right thing for the song. But there might be portions that you want to spice up a little bit. Hey, how about this for an example? We got a beat, but you don't want a crazy fill on the very end of it, you know? You don't want any some crazy stuff in there, but you want to spice it up just a little bit. Well, if you break it down and go, oh, I'm pretty much playing, this groove, and I know from the paradiddle exercise that I can spice it up by doing a little bit of paradiddles with it. All of a sudden you have yourself a built-in fill just based on this exercise by taking little segments of other pieces and sort of putting them together. Now, that comes up to the next point, pattern recognition, strong beats, but more importantly, as you play through every single exercise, is to be able to find and reference the downbeat through everything that you do. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. And as soon as you get to that point where you have all the downbeat reference points through anything that you do, you suddenly get into this point where you can combine anything you know with anything else that you know. Combinations of paradiddles, straight beats, all those types of things, and all of a sudden it becomes something kind of crazy. Now, that's what I want to talk about. When you first start to learn drums, or any instrument for that example, we talked about as the sheet becoming the dictating thing of what you play. A lot of people will be like, well, what beat are you playing there? If I wrote literally everything out that I just did, you would get this piece of music that had all kinds of diddles, all kinds of notes, all kinds of split stuff that go all in between. And that's good to learn like certain tricks that you have, but in reality, and again, this is the performance side of the lesson, is in reality what I'm thinking is this. That's what's going through my head as I play that. I'm not thinking about all the different paradiddles. I'm not thinking about all the little, all the little 5-stroke rolls in there. I'm not thinking about all those things. I'm thinking, what is the groove? What groove am I playing right now? 1, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Boom, up, boom, up, boom, and I'm just filling in the gaps. That's all that is I'm taking the other tricks that I know, 5-stroke rough, which we actually did today, by the way, or 5-stroke roll, adding a few of those in for spice, and also a little bit of paradiddles. And again, all the stuff that I'm playing there, even this stuff, even that crazy stuff on the bass drum, that's Diddles. Yeah, guys. So, paradiddles are the God rudiment because it's the first thing that allows us to combine single strokes with double strokes. It's a really, really important aspect to be able to put those two things together. How you guys all doing today, by the way? Everybody having a good day? How's everybody doing? Everybody that has some snow, you guys having a good one on this one? Anybody shoveling like crazy? Anybody digging out, getting all the good stuff? I've noticed a small little issue. Oh, by the way, guys, today, board is coming today. I got the same board. Well, maybe. We were talking about it, too. I was like, we got about 12 to 20 inches of snow on the ground right now. Do you think that they're going to be able to deliver to us today? I don't know, guys. I do not know. All right, so we're going to be breaking right back down into some more paradiddles, but we can make it into more complex. You got lucky you didn't get snow mechadom. Nice, man. Very nice. All right. So here we go, guys. Also, if you guys could tweet out the stream, that'd be fantastic. It'd really, really help me out. A very big deal. And, by the way, maybe by drone. I think a drone would be pretty cool. A drone would be pretty cool. Yeah, I would love to see that. A board coming in with a helicopter and a drone. Be fantastic. Yeah, so dudes. This is just the beginning. Paradiddle by itself. Again, the sticky for it, right, left, right, right. Oh my God, did we get our very first cheer? We got our very first cheer on the channel, by the way. Thank you so much, Megadom. You are the top cheerleader on the stream right now, by the way. Oh, the other thing too, guys, every single sub, highest sub count ever. That's how that works. We're at 2 right now. We have 2 subs. But it's all good, guys, it's all good. We just got affiliate. Add bits. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah. I love it. I love it. All right. So paradiddles, 4 reference points are this. Now, for those of you who are here as a curiosity point and not going, you know what? I really, really want to learn how to play the drums and all that kind of stuff. This is a cool thing to sort of understand the concept because you're going to hear this a lot in music too. Oh man, I just had an idea for bits. What's that? I'm all ears, man. I'm all ears. I think it'd be very cool. I'm sipping coffee, guys, because I got to tell you, I woke up way too early. I got a call 5:30 in the morning about school cancellation today. So, yeah, was up very early. We need a little snare drum for them to drop on. Oh, that'd be kind of cool. I like that. A little bit of bits to drop on a snare drum. I wonder if I can do that. Maybe I'll work up some scene stuff. I do need to do a lot of scene stuff on this channel, that's for sure. But yeah. All right, guys. Coffee in hand, coffee ingested, coffee into the bloodstream, all of that good stuff. But yeah, back to it. Paradiddles and recognizing it and hearing all those extra grooves. One of the things that is going to be really awesome about doing these streams and doing these lessons is not only will you get to see like the end result of like the performance, but it's all the things that go into practicing it. And you may start to find that a lot of stuff that you hear is not as complicated as you might think. Or maybe get a little bit better understanding of maybe how musical structure gets put together. Maybe have a little bit different understanding and maybe even kind of expand your musical taste a little bit. Maybe you'll hear, and I found this to be true. This is why I never was into jazz growing up. I'll be honest with you guys. Never really into jazz. I started studying it and I started listening to these patterns, started playing around with, playing some jazz a little bit. And I got to tell you, after doing that, I was like, okay, I really like jazz. And it's not because I like it as the background music that I chill out to. It's actually very intellectually stimulating for me because there's all this stuff and you go, oh my God, did you hear what they did there? That was insane. That was crazy. I was like, oh, it sounded kind of cool. It sounded kind of good. But understanding these concepts and like, what's easy, what's difficult, maybe like this. And it becomes one of those things that you have like a greater appreciation for folks that do something a little bit outside the box sometimes. Maybe something that sounds a little bit different. Maybe not something that's like the run-of-the-mill standard sort of thing. Or you start to hear bands that work together much, much better because everybody is on board with thinking about these concepts. So it's pretty interesting though. It's pretty interesting and good stuff. All right, guys, check this out. This is the paradiddle. Now there are tons of different variations that we can do with the paradiddle, but we're going to talk about the next one. And again, this is the God rudiment of how to get singles and doubles together. The next one is going to be called a paradiddle hyphen diddle. Oh my gosh, what do you think this one is? So again, automatic Piic words, and that is going to be a 6-note rudiment, and it's also going to be right, left, or para, and then followed by a diddle and a diddle. Paradiddle diddle. This one's a very, really cool one, and a lot of times this will be written in a 6, or a lot of times we'll call this a 24th note. I know I might have just blown your minds a little bit there, but a 24th note, also known as there are 24 of them. Knowledge changes things from that was cool to that was cool. You're exactly right. Triple diddles, I know. Paradiddle diddle. So paradiddle diddle, we'll apply this to the drum set here, is nothing too crazy, but you do a paradiddle diddle. Paradiddle diddle. Now this one in particular happens to fall into a pretty nice groove. Happy snow day to you as well, Elm. How you doing, man? Kids are off school. We're up in the attic playing a little bit of drums, man. How you doing? Paradiddle diddle. And similarly to what we did for the initial paradiddle, there's 2 different ways to play this. Number 1 is accenting the beginning of the rudiment with this, not with the butt of the sticks. Paradiddle diddle. Paradiddle diddle. Or to play it without any rudiments at all, or any accents at all. So you get that full range of motion of paradiddle diddle. Now this is one of my personal favorites because when you start adding the paradiddle diddle, because of the way that this particular grouping of singles and doubles work together, you can get really, really fast, really, really quick, and it doesn't take a lot of motion to play these 24th notes or the sextuplets. And you notice there's not like a ton of stuff that's happening with my hands. Or without accents. Now if I just start to move that around. This one, guys, I cannot wait to have a full drum set because I cannot tell you. There's a lesson I want to do that's all about movement. That I can't quite show you on these pads how that actually works, but that's a paradiddle diddle. Now the other cool thing is that although that we get this like crazy, you know, super fast sort of we also get something kind of crazy. Did you see a lot of paradiddle diddles in Scottish bagpipe music? I never really played Scottish bagpipe music, but probably. There's a few other rudiments that are closely related to like the bodhran and other frame drums. For frame drums, the most popular ones are going to be the tambourine and the bodhran, but you get a lot of triplets, and I think that's where you may be hitting on a little bit. How would one diddle on a bagpipe with finger motion? But Now you get like a lot of the botter and stuff, and you're going to get that triplet feel. It's more of a traditional bottering thing. You're getting that feel because you get that 6. You also get this in a lot of like Irish music too. I was just thinking like Dropkick Murphys on that. Bum 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 bum. Makes you want to ran dance. Fun stuff. All right, back to the paradiddle diddle. Now, we talk about this rudiment, but you also get this really, really, really cool thing that happens with the paradiddle diddle in terms of jazz. Now, we haven't talked about jazz yet. There's a lot of stuff to it, but it's really funny that this particular rhythm of the 6-tuplet, if we take this beat and instead of starting it on, if we stretch it out to triplets rather than 6-tuplets, let me just show you real quick here, guys. Stretch it out to triplets rather than 6-tuplets. And we're going to just shift this around ever so slightly. That was the beat before that one. Oh, yeah, the beat before that one. There's a whole slew of beats, man. All right, so here we go. If we take this, paradiddle diddle, but we're going to put it in a regular triplet fashion. And if we remember sort of back to the reading lessons, there's modifications of rhythms, or there's like the different time signatures that we can do. So we can write this in 12/8, or we can write this in 4/4 with triplets over top of it, 3s. Now we're going to do this, the triplet on the paradiddle diddle, but instead of starting it on the very first note, we're going to take a paradiddle diddle and we're going to start it on the second note. So it's going to be a paradiddle diddle starting here. Right, left, right, right, left, left. That's where the paradiddle happens, but it goes across the bar line now. So the next one's going to be paradiddle, diddle. All right, so that becomes our rudiment. Now, this is pretty cool because when we play this on the drum set, this actually, oh my God, the shoveling. Yeah, you got that one covered, right? We have 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and. Now, if we take that same concept that we did with the regular paradiddle and start to move this around on different things, how about in this case, let's move it over to the ride cymbal. Pretty sweet because I didn't know Hermie could shovel. Raj is drumming, Hermie shoveling. She offered, to be fair. The cool thing is that we suddenly have our exact jazz pattern on the ride. And then the rudiment for all of the different inner beats that happen in between all of the jazz ride cymbals based just on the paradiddle diddle. And also the cool thing is because the accents happen at the beginning of the rudiment, and in this case on 2 and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, a 1, 2, 3, a 1, 2, 3. We also have that nice flow to it. 1. All kinds of really fun stuff that you can do with that. Base around the paradiddle, but then it just becomes fun because you want to play. That's what it is. That's what I just want to play, you know. All that kind of really fun stuff, man. I will just jam. I want to jam like crazy. All right, now, that's a pretty cool kind of lick, but it's taking that paradiddle groove, or a paradiddle diddle groove, and then adding it around the drum set, and all of a sudden we start to get into this like sort of like jazz groove and this jazz sort of like flow to it, which is really nice, but you also can get like that super fast, you know, sort of like a rock groove to it, you know, or a funk groove actually works pretty well with this too. How did I do this? It was like bump, bump, bump. That's what it is. Now, in your guys' brains, and you're listening to that at home, how crazy does it sound? Probably sounds like a little bit of a crazy thing. Paradiddle diddle, paradiddle tap. And that's all that is. It's one paradiddle, paradiddle diddle, and a paradiddle. And then going back to the groove. And that's what I'll talk about, like utilizing this to spice things up quite a bit. Now that brings me to my next point, is when you practice these rudiments, and as you practice a rudiment is basically a collection of sticking and different things that you can do in terms of rhythm, in terms of flams, in terms of accents. And these are some of our basic rudiments that we can go into. But again, the paradiddle is the one rudiment in the entire list that starts to combine It's the one rudiment that is almost essential to combining things in a more musical fashion, which is why I call it like the drum set God rudiment. Basically because if you can do any combinations of singles and doubles, you can move around the kit a ton easier, and you can get a bunch of crazy, crazy sounds. Now, I want to talk about this because a rudiment does not equal a particular rhythm. And let's talk about this. We are on a paradiddle diddle, which happens to be a 6-note phrase. So far, we've talked about it in terms of 24th notes, and we've talked about it in terms of triplets. However, the rudiment is a paradiddle diddle. It doesn't say it has to be a triplet. It doesn't say it has to fall into a 6-note groove. We can apply this to all different types of things. Now, this is an important concept to really, really get down, because applying rudiments to different rhythms starts to make some interesting and very, very sort of awesome sounding grooves. Let's take, for example, we're going to do two things, and we're going to do it just the opposite. And the opposite is going to be this. We did our paradiddles in terms of 16th notes because it's a 4-note groove. But we're going to start to think about paradiddles in terms of triplets. And then we're going to take our 6-note one, which is a paradiddle diddle, and we're going to apply that to the 16th note, which is a 4-note phrasing. So if we take our paradiddle diddle and we start applying that to 16 notes, you start getting a little bit more interesting concepts in terms of like rhythmical hits, rather than everything being completely downbeat based. And one of the things that you need to do as you're going through all of these different rudiments and getting these different concepts that are going through is to make sure that no matter what you're practicing, you don't learn paradiddle diddles only as a 6, you learn them as a sticking, and then apply different counts to them. And here's a really good example. Paradiddle diddle, paradiddle diddle, and then we have like 4 notes left over. Why don't we just throw a paradiddle at the very end and then slap on the end with the left hand? Ooh, that's a tricky one right there. That's a tricky one. But we have our accent points. Now all of a sudden, the beginning of the rudiments becomes this sort of groove across the entire thing. Back to the drum set cam. You guys can see what's going on with this. This is going to be 2 paradiddle diddles and then a paradiddle at the very end. Hang on a minute. The drum is slipping. Drum is slipping. Okay, so now all of a sudden we have this groove, and this is like our downbeat. Oh, no worries, Elm. Don't shovel. That's why I got the truck, right? All right, that is starting to take a different groove and a different approach. Now that last thing I just played was exactly the same concept, but again, it's applying it to different rhythms. In the case that I was doing it, instead of it being 16 notes, it's the 32nd notes. But I'm doing a paradiddle diddle, paradiddle diddle, paradiddle tap. Now, it's all about learning the exercises and getting the flow and the feel for those exercises to work within some sort of downbeat. In our case, that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and in this one, it would be paradiddle diddle, paradiddle diddle, paradiddle. All right, that's the 16th note, but if we apply that, that's when you get a snowblower, or kids for the great labor. That's true. Wife is yet working at 7:30 p.m. tonight. Oh God, stay safe, Elm. Do stay safe. But we're going to apply that same rhythm to 32nd notes this time instead of just on the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. I do one extra thing in here, and as I'm playing through this, this is the kind of the stuff that over the course of time and as you play around, you start to add some stuff that I don't necessarily think about, but I'm actually doing a little drag or rough. A simple drag, like before rudiment, like is called a rough. All right, but I'm doing a little bit of a rough right before that, so it's like I just did it right there too. You should have a little rough right before it. And yeah, so I'll start adding like little bits of flavor here and there. And that goes back to the musical concept of what is an exercise and then what is starting to become an artist. And again, as a drummer, you don't necessarily think everything in terms of very, very strict, what's on the page is what you play. You start to think about like, what's the groove? And you start filling in those spaces as things happen. Back to the paradiddle. You know what's really funny? Can you guys see my left foot here? I want you to watch what my left foot does, and this is typically what my hi-hat foot would do when I do this. I'm actually doing it like I would like an open hi-hat over here as the groove. It's one of those things that once you start to practice over and over, you start to get this muscle memory of like what it sounds like, you know? Yeah, buddy, that's some fun stuff right there. All right, that is a brief one on Paradiddles, guys. It's a super, super fun groove. Super, super fun groove to play. I really enjoy playing it. And again, it's one of those like God rudiments that you can just do all kinds of crazy stuff with. But we have more to do here. Remember we just talked about taking a 6-note grouping and put it inside of a 4-note and you start getting some interesting stuff. Why don't we take something else? Let's take our 4 grouping of the paradiddle diddle and let's apply that to triplet notes rather than in a 16-note groove. Let's see what we come up with that. See what kind of crazy stuff that might show up with. So we go like this. We go like a triplets. Triplets, 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 triplets. And a little bit of threes. But let's apply our paradiddle to this now. And this one's really cool. So we're going to go yeah. Oh, good. I should just drink more coffee. That's really what I should do. Paradiddle, paradiddle, paradiddle. And there's a kind of an interesting thing that happens. When we repeat this measure, we're actually on the opposing hand. So we have this reversal of all the stickings of the other paradiddle. So now we're taking a 4-note rudiment and applying it to a 3-note phrase, in this case, going to be paradiddles, on triplets. This one's a fun one, guys. This one's a fun one. Because you start to get this crazy, crazy groove. And remember, the accents are the beginning of the paradiddles. And this one, by the way, is a pretty important groove. And I'll talk about this a little bit more too. Paradiddles on the triplets, guys. Paradiddles on the triplets, sorry. I spoke incorrectly. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and You guys hearing that? Again, all about downbeat reference. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. All right, so I want to explain this concept and how important this really is of what we just did. By exploring a rudiment and maybe taking it and putting it over top of something that's not in its original grouping. It's a 4-note rudiment. We put it in a 3-note phrase. And by doing that, we came up with this sort of concept in a groove. And the concept in the groove, when we add those accents back in, happens to be this thing called a hemiola. And a hemiola is I have no idea the origin of that term, by the way. That's some crazy drum term that somebody came up with. I just wanted to have hemiolas. I don't think it comes from a Latin base. But a hemiola is essentially when you have a steady and consistent pattern over top of a different but also consistent pattern. In this case, we have a 4-beat phrase or a 4/4 measure that just so happens that when you put the paradiddle on every 4th note, you get a consistent pattern through the entire thing on 3 notes per measure. 3 notes per measure. Remember that, guys. 3 notes per measure. On top of the quarter note, which would be 4 notes per measure. So this is what's known as the 3/4 hemiola, which is very common. Now the 3/4 hemiola, little ratios there. That's 3 notes and 4 notes in the exact same space. All right, and I learned this, and excuse my phrasing, but a lot of times when you learn these particular, like how do they fit together? You start to say words with them. And this one is, you guys ready for it? You guys ready for it? Does anybody know this one, by the way? Are there any drummers out there who remember this one? All right, this one right here is Pass the Goddamn Butter. All right, you guys ready for it? Hey, what's up, Lisa? How are you doing? Pass the goddamn butter. And it's pretty sweet when you start to get a little quicker with it, too. Doing good. How are you doing, Lisa? I hope you're having a fantastic one. That is the hemiola. And the cool thing is that if you really want to work it, there's those little phrases that you can say as you go through it. I've been lurking and jiggling, dancing in your chair. Oh, yeah. That's a pretty sweet one. That all comes down for like exploring the rudiments. And the cool thing is when you get a good understanding of like the basics of the rudiments, the basics of sticking, and then the basics of rhythm and concepts of the rhythm, you could say, let's apply, what happens if I take this and apply it over to maybe something that doesn't quite fit exactly? Like some really, really crazy stuff that you can do. 5s on 3-note stuff, 4s on 3s, and you get these like crazy hemiola patterns. I'll say it again, hemiola. I have no idea how to spell it. Hemiola, and this is the 4/3 one. Now I know that technically I should play a nice double stop, which is both notes at the same time on one, but it sounds a little bit more tribal, especially when you're on the toms, playing it as a big fat open flam. And you know what's great? Hemiola. Yeah, basically. Hemiola. Maybe that's how you spell it. It's probably like that, though, too. So, guys, have you ever heard that before in a song? Has anybody ever heard that? Anybody ever heard that before? It is. It's how you Google it. Hemiola. There you go. What is the actual Google definition of hemiola? Can you tell me what the actual Google definition of it is? That's pretty funny. And has anybody heard that rhythm in a song before? You may have heard it in quite a few things. I'm going to sip my coffee because I need this juice inside. It makes me stuff is happening. Music and movies. Oh, stuff is happening, like a chase scene, maybe. A musical figure in which 2 groups of 3 beats are replaced by 3 groups of 2 beats, giving the effect of the shift between triple and duple meter. I mean, it's right, but that doesn't really give you the explanation. Best thing is, yeah, chase scenes. Yeah, I like that. A musical figure typically plays the groups of 3 beats are replaced by 3 groups of 2 beats, giving the effect of a shift between triple and duple meter. Okay. It's right, but basically what you're doing is you can hear this as like, you could hear it in 3 or you can hear it in 4. It's one of those two types of things. Triple and duple meter is a totally different thing altogether. That's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2, which is a different feel, right? Like that's a complete like sort of shift of like triple and duple. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. I'm getting a very, very distinct quarter note pulse to give you guys like the difference between those two things. That's typically known as a modulation. Modulation is when you take it and you switch between the 2 meters. What they're saying is correct, but it's misleading, right? What they're saying is correct because you can hear it as 4 notes, or you can hear it as like the opposing one. Like you could think of this is the downbeat, or you can think about this is the downbeat, or you could switch between the two. So you could hear it as like a duple meter, or you could hear it as a triple meter, which is what they're saying correctly as it gives the effect of. But really what a hemiola is 2 consistent patterns that don't line up, but they fill the same amount of space. 3 notes in the same space of 4 notes. That's the hemiola. Now here's the thing, guys, and this is where I want to kind of go full circle with this. that same hemiola effect can be sort of arrived upon by taking a very, very simple, or the God rudiment that we talked about, the paradiddle, and applying it to different rhythms. Paradiddle, which is a 4-note grouping, apply it to a 3-note grouping, and all of yeah, that beat sounds very tribal to you? Oh, it's very tribal, yeah. That's why you play it on the toms, because it doesn't really... It doesn't really have like a backbeat to it, you know what I'm saying? Maybe sounds a little Stuart Copeland-y, you know? A little variation on the same thing, but that's utilizing like the cymbals and the bass drum. It gives a little bit feel. Yep, lacks the feel to it without the toms. That's where you get a tribal feel to it, right? But yeah, so yes, that's the hemiola. But I want to get this concept of taking and applying different rudiments and different basic concepts and applying them in maybe a non-standard way. Get you an interesting flow and an interesting feel. And by learning and recognizing what the sound of those things are, you understand how to incorporate them into a piece or incorporate them into a fill with some crazy stuff. Again, this comes from just a paradiddle on triplets. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. And the cool thing is it's not just learning the hemiola part, which is that, you know, all right. It's learning also like all the inner beats that happen into it. Radar love, yeah. It's a little bit different though. You get that like, yeah, that whole like, yeah. And then there's a whole bunch of songs that do that. Here's the cool thing, watch this. If I don't count and don't give you guys the downbeat, watch this. Anybody's brains start adding and you start thinking downbeat to those accent points? Here's the trick as a drummer. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. All right, so you start thinking about it as where the downbeats are, and you can fool your audience into hearing a downbeat that's not there. 1 and a... How long did it take when I'm going to start to play this. I'll play it with the downbeat here on the bass drum. Yeah, you like that, huh? Super sensitive, easily triggered. But I'll play with the downbeat. I want you to think to yourself, how long does it take for my brain switches off to thinking that what you're accenting up here on the snare is the new downbeat? How long did it take you guys before you were thinking that this is the downbeat now? 1 beat, 2 beats, 3 beats. So here's the thing, and trust me, as a drummer, you also have that sort of same thought process, that your brain hears that and it wants to go there, and you know it brings you back. And this is something that through all of my lessons for about approximately 20 years on my whiteboard at the lesson studio, in permanent marker, right up here, it says this wonderful word, count. If I was not counting as I played through that, I myself would get lost. But I'm thinking triplet counts as I go through the entire thing. And because I'm thinking triplet counts, I can find my downbeat. I can reference the downbeat, but I can also fool your ears into hearing something way more complicated than what it actually is. Now, what am I doing on the snare? What am I playing? Literally, my hands aren't changing a thing. I'm playing paradiddles, a simple rudiment, over and over and over again with some accents. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. But because we're utilizing the counts and we're taking these and applying them to maybe non-standard rhythms, a 4-beat rudiment, applying it to a 3-note concept, we get that hemiola aspect, but we also get this crazy groove, and you give also that ability to kind of trick the listener's ears to something more complicated than it really is. Now, it is complicated, and again, you have to be getting in the thought process, but you start to feel these grooves as well. Now, this one's a very, very difficult one to get from a coordination standpoint, guys, because there's a lot of things that happen, and this is, in its own right, taking it away from that musical aspect a minute and taking it more into the practice room of like, okay, I want to learn how to do this. How would I apply to do these types of things? If you take it into a classroom environment, you start to look at this. We have this 4-note rudiment, but we also have a whole bunch of different coordination things that occur. Let's switch right over here to the board cam for just a moment, and I'll explain this just briefly. If we look at all of these crazy things that we have in the triplet and all these different stickings, let's just talk about this a little bit. All right, are you all ready? Are you all ready? I hope so. When we start putting this with our coordination, with our hands and our feet, we have combinations of accents, also stickings, and bass drum, all right? Now, if we put our bass drum, I'm just playing them on 4 quarter notes all the way through. And I want to talk about the different hand and foot combinations that occur here. At the very beginning of the exercise, we have a very simple starting point, which in our case is going to be just a simple right hand with right foot. If you remember back to our other thing, that's a together note from a coordination point. But, so that's a right hand just by itself. But we're going to talk about where the bass drums occur in terms of our doubles. So we have a single note with the single note, and then the next one we have a paradiddle, and it happens to be that the second bass drum that we hit happens right on the second note of a diddle. So we're in the middle of playing a diddle, and then all of a sudden the bass drum happens on the second note of that diddle. Okay, that's a little crazy. Then our next bass drum will happen on the first note of another diddle. Oh, crap. All right. And then we go on the very next one, the end portion, this is going to be a single left hand. But here's the other thing. We also have, I want to think about it in terms of like where our diddles occur. If we repeat the measure, we have a bass drum that occurs right after we play a diddle. So it's going to have within one measure, within a single measure phrase, we have our hands and our feet doing this crazy thing where we have to coordinate the point of we're playing a diddle and our bass drum happens on the second note of the diddle. We have a diddle that it happens on the first note of a diddle, and then we have it where the diddle happens in between the 2 bass drums. So within a single measure, we get all the combinations of how the diddle will fit with our feet. And to overcomplicate things, because it's a paradiddle, and because we flip-flop at every single measure, you do it with both hands in the course of 2 measures. You have every combination of, this is going to be a right, or we'll just think about in terms of diddles. We have our right, so we have this coordination of the second note of a right hand diddle. We have the first notes of a left hand diddle. We have the in-between of a right hand diddle. Then the next time around, we have the second note of a left hand diddle, the first note of a right hand diddle, and then the in-between of the left hand. So within the course of 2 measures, that's only 2 measures, you start to do this crazy coordination points that occur on both bass drum and snare drum, which makes this a very, very difficult exercise to get coordination-wise. That's why I kind of approach it the way that I just did, which is doing that crazy thing of, in gigantic capital letters, count, all right? And practice the rudiments too. So again, this is more of less on the performance aspect and becoming an artist aspect of putting these things together. And this is more on the practice room side. How do I get to this point? How do I work this stuff up? The best way I found to do this, and this is usually, for a well-rehearsed student, this will take about 2 to 3 weeks to get down. And the way that, here's the steps on how to get to this point, playing triplets with paradiddles in this weird groove. Because again, look at the coordination that has to happen here. That is a ton of stuff that occurs, which makes it, it's a difficult exercise. But the way to do it is as follows. Thank God I got that numpad. That numpad is awesome. I want to hear that. I want to mount it on the wall. You practice the paradiddle itself first. What you want to do is you want to make paradiddles, and playing this exercise, paradiddle, 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 like breathing. You want this thing so natural, it's like you don't think about walking anymore. You just walk up the drum, yeah, drum. Oh, I'm playing paradiddles, cool. You want it to be very, very natural. And the reason that you want to do that is you don't want to be thinking about the rudiment when you're starting to think about the counts. If you're thinking counts, you don't want to be thinking stickings. It's just too much to do. You want your hands to be like, you want like, I'm going to say this as crazily simple as I can. You basically want to be like, yo, dudes, yo, right and left hand. All right, dudes, paradiddles go. Brain doesn't think it, hands already know it. That's the secret. Brain doesn't think it, hands already know it. And then once your hands already know how to flow with the paradiddle, then instead of thinking paradiddle, 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 because that takes quite a bit of time, you start applying counts to it instead of paradiddles. You start by counting 16 notes. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1. And then, because we're only counting now and not thinking about what our hands are doing, we change what our counts are. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. When you first start doing that, from the practice room side, you think maybe less on the accents to start, all right? And think more on counts with sticking. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So getting your hands feeling that new rhythm with without the accents, but with new counts. Your hands, again, getting to the point where they just play paradiddles, like, yo, dudes, play paradiddles. Okay. Got it. Simple as walking, you know? And then you apply the counts, and then you add the accents back in. Now, when we add our accents, when you start this exercise, and it's super, super crucial, is where the accents occur. We are going to be doing alternating stickings on accents. So right, left, and right at the beginning of each one of the paradiddles. And the counts that they fall on are 1, in, and And I realize that we haven't talked about that before, but triplet counts are 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and none of that T-Taw stuff, all right? Use your counts. No T-Taws. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and And exactly what I'm just doing in counting the accents, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and is a great way to start it. It takes your mind away from what are the things that we have to play, and it puts it more into one thing at a time. I'm thinking just the counts, and I'm thinking about where the accents happen. Now we've worked multiple sides. We have worked our paradiddles, so we know how our hands, yo dudes, play paradiddles, right? Got comfortable with that. We've started to do different stickings within a triplet rhythm, and now we're going to apply the groove aspect by counting where the accents occur. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. All those things together. And you start to put your groove together. Again, not an easy one, but this is one of those other reasons where I talked about paradiddles are the God rudiment, because you can apply it to all kinds of crazy stuff. And guess what? You've learned all that stuff based on just a paradiddle. All those things are based all around paradiddles and paradiddle diddles, or the combination of singles and double strokes, guys. The God rudiment, that was jazz, that was like funk, that was some rock, there was some all kinds of stuff in there. And today we covered things like diddles, we covered things like rebound, we covered things of the sticking, and we covered up to the hemiola going through this. We've gone from lesson 101 to lesson 510, all in one single stream, guys. It's been pretty crazy. And this is one of my absolute favorites. And by the way, in this small stream window of 3 hours, we have not even begun to scratch the surface of all the things that you can do with paradiddles and paradiddle diddles and combinations of singles and doubles. Very, very simple. But it's a combination of a single and a double. You get all kinds of crazy stuff that you can do. And all that is paradiddles and combinations of singles and doubles. There's not even any coordination in that. I'm just playing around. And some of the best ideas happen when you just sit behind the kit, start playing along to it, play along with some tracks, and just play around with some stuff, man. Just play around with some stuff. It's super fun. Guys, thank you for joining me. If you are new and have not been here before, make sure to slap that follow button. It does help me out a great deal. For those of you who have known us from the We All Playcast broadcast, we'll be back tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our normal night strum tonight, where we're going to be jumping into a little bit of Minecraft, I believe, guys. So, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed the crazy lesson of what we did today. We covered a ton of stuff, and you guys have been awesome. Keep shedding, guys. We'll see you next time. Later, guys.